This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. Okay, let's see here. There is so much news. There is so much going on. We're going to have a fascinating day today. We're going to hear from the incoming president of the National Organization for Black Law Enforcement, and we're going to hear from Congressman Joe Crowley. I'm looking forward to that. He's the chair of the House Democratic Caucus. And but in this first hour, there's just a whole bunch of things. First of all, Scaramucci. Scaramucci. Is he getting too much PR for Trump? I mean, he tweeted this thing about, oh my God, my financial information is out there, and I'm going, and rents, and I'm going to turn this over to the FBI. Well, it turns out that it's publicly available. Anybody can get his financial information. And he's in the process right now of trying to sell his hedge fund to a Chinese bank for $90 million. And if there's this cool little loophole in the law where if you sell your company and then go to work in the White House, you don't pay taxes on the money, essentially. So the mooch is trying really hard to do this deal. And frankly, if I owned a hedge fund right now at this point with the stock market, at this point with the economy, we're getting higher and higher and higher on the, closer and closer and closer to the edge of the ledge. I'd be selling it too. But, the question is, the mooch getting too much publicity for Trump? You've got Republicans in the Senate saying, this administration's out of control. Well, Mooch isn't even part of the administration yet. He can't go to work until he sells his company. That's presumably going to be in the middle of August. But, is he getting too much PR for Trump? Trump, took down Spicer, basically, because he was getting, he was becoming more famous than Trump. Trump doesn't like that. This guy is a, a little-fingered sociopath who does not, a narcissist who does not like the focus of television attention to be anywhere other than on himself. So, number one. Number two, it looks like the Republicans are going to vote on a skinny repeal of Obamacare today. That repeals the individual mandate or repeals the employer mandate. So your employer just might nuke your health insurance if you think that you've got a health insurance through your employer and therefore you're protected if you work for a company that has more than 50 employees. Good luck. It would repeal the medical device tax. In other words, the lobbyists have been whispering in the ears of the Republicans. It would defund Planned Parenthood, leaving millions of American women with few or untenable options for gynecological and other, and other health issues. It would repeal the Prevention and Public Health Fund, so we're no longer protected against infectious diseases, whether they're just like naturally occurring things, measles epidemics, or whether they're, hey, somebody brought some anthrax into the United States and spread it all over, fill in the blank. And it would repeal the Community Health Center Fund. This is the fund that, I believe, it's the fund that pays for things like the 10,000 community health centers around the United States that Bernie Sanders got put into Obamacare. That's pretty awful stuff. And they're calling it a skinny repeal, like that's desirable. You ever walk into a bar and order a skinny margarita or a skinny gin and tonic? I would think that they would think that you mean less alcohol, right? Like not as much. And who wants that? I suppose, some people are teetotalers or close to it, but with regard to health care, who wants skinny health care? It's not a good thing. I realize in our culture we're supposed to believe that skinny is good, but this, obviously there are exceptions to that. But anyhow, the top U.S., so there's that. Then yesterday, Trump tweeted out that, he hates transgendered people, basically. And I don't know if he realized or not that somewhere between 10 and 20,000 transgender people are currently serving active duty in the military. But one of them is an acquaintance of mine who's been over 20 years in the Air Force. And this is mind-boggling. So two things to this story, two pieces to this story. The first is Trump announced this with 3 tweets. And the first tweet basically said, I've been talking to my generals and I'm going to do something. And then the second tweet, what he was going to do, Took 9 minutes. And apparently, from several news reports from several different sources, over at the Pentagon, the big cheeses were totally freaked out because Trump had not discussed this with them in advance. And they didn't know what was coming in that second tweet. The big fear was that he was going to say, in his first tweet, I've talked to my generals. His second tweet was going to be, and we're nuking North Korea in 5 minutes. They had no idea. Now that they know what it is, Joseph Dunford, the general who is the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, sent out a written letter, a written message on Thursday to all military leaders, all branches of the service, saying, and I quote, there will be no modifications to the current, this would be the current policy around transgender people, there will be no modifications to the current policy until the President's direction has been received by the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary has issued implementation guidance. In other words, number one, Trump never told us. Number two, he still hasn't told us the formal way that he's supposed to tell us by notifying us, formally. And number three, we're the ones who decide how and even if this gets put into effect. And then he ends this with a kick in the ass to Trump. He says, in the meantime, we will continue to treat all of our personnel with respect. As importantly, given the current fight and the challenges we face, we will remain focused on accomplishing our assigned missions. There was, in my opinion, in other words, Trump, stop dragging us into your petty and bizarre political fights. Now, meanwhile, the Department of Justice under Jeff Sessions has now come out and said, we're not sure that gay people are protected by civil rights laws. Let that sink in. These guys are committed to rolling us, to taking the United States back to this, make America great again, right? I mean, that was also Ronald Reagan's campaign slogan. Reagan took us halfway back to 1929. Trump is trying to take us the other half of the way. This is nuts. And then Lisa Murkowski was one of the two senators, she and Susan Collins, who voted against Trump's throw 32 million people off their health care bill. And so this is a report in the Alaska Dispatch News says that Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke, this is a report by Alan Rupar over at thinkprogress.org. According to a report in Alaska Dispatch News, Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke, now we were talking about him yesterday, the guy who rode to work on a horse, who's traveling, the Western lands, with his Western outfit and his boots and the whole bit, the cowboy hat, and talking with a drawl and everything. He's suddenly become, a cowboy when his bureaucrats back here in Washington, D.C. are busily working to sell off public lands and give billionaires and oil and mineral developers everything they want and screw the American public. Anyhow, Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke called Murkowski and Dan Sullivan, who is the junior senator from Alaska, and said that Murkowski's vote, quote, this is what Zinke, who's in Trump's cabinet, this is what Zinke said to Dan Sullivan. He said, Murkowski's vote has put Alaska's future with this administration in jeopardy. Really? Sullivan told the Dispatch News that Zinke's Wednesday call was troubling. Sullivan said, I'm not going to go into the details, but I fear that the strong economic growth, pro-energy, pro-mining, pro-jobs, and personnel from Alaska who are part of those policies are going to stop. I tried to push back on behalf of all Alaskans. We're facing some difficult times, and there's a lot of enthusiasm for the policies that Secretary Zinke and the President have been talking about with regard to our economy, but the message was pretty clear. This is government by mafia. This illegitimate president, this national vote loser, is acting like a mob boss. Hey, you wouldn't want anything to happen. Nice state you got there, Lisa. Wouldn't want anything to happen to it. A lot of nice women and children there in Alaska, Lisa. Wouldn't want anybody to get kneecapped. Right. This is, bizarre is not even a strong enough word for this. It's not even close. Meanwhile, Sam Brownback, the guy who screwed up Kansas, totally screwed up Kansas, right, with Reaganomics. He's so unpopular, he couldn't get elected dog catcher in Kansas. So Trump is making him our religious ambassador to the world. What? The United States has a religious ambassador? This is bizarre, too. But anyhow, it's anything goes summer, whatever you'd like to talk about, give us a shout. 202-808-9925. We'll be back with you.